What's going on, Summoners? It's great to see you all again. My name is Crumbs and I'll be your host for this video. In it, we'll cover the upcoming changes for patch 12.11. Everything from champion balance to system adjustments will be addressed. I do want to note that this patch is a follow-up to some big system adjustments from the current one, patch 12.10. As a result, we're mostly going to see some small number tweaks moving forward, and I'm sure these numbers are still being finalized by Riot's balance team. That said, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content like this, and let's get the video started. We'll first cover the upcoming skins for next patch. It's officially summer, so we've got some skins to help us celebrate the season. This year, we have some Ocean Song skin lines coming our way. Ocean Song Ashe, Nidalee, Seraphine Prestige, Yone, and Zeri join Summoner's Rift next patch. These skins bring the summer aesthetic along with some pop star vibes. Bel'Veth is also set to launch next patch, and with her a Battle Boss skin. Make sure to check them all out, and let's head on to balance changes next. First off, we'll start with system changes. It's a long list, so buckle up. As a result of the durability changes, the game is certainly out of balance at the moment. In response, there are countless nerfs and buffs coming up for items and runes. Beginning with buffs, we have a very long list of items. Everfrost, Crown of the Shattered Queen, Hextech Rocket Belt, Night Harvester, Gore Drinker, Duskblade, Eclipse, Prowler's Claw, Axiom Arc, Serpent's Fang, Blade of the Ruined King, Bami Cinder, Frostfire Gauntlet, Turbo Chem Tank, Sunfire Aegis, Randuin's Omen, Spirit Visage, Abyssal Mask, Zeke's Convergence, and Knight's Vow. Wow, that's a lot. AP Mythic items are up for a rebalance too, while the Assassin item buffs are actually there to make sure Assassins don't start opting into Bruiser builds. As pure lethality has been underperforming, players have been adapting by opting into tankier builds, but Riot wants to incentivize players to not do this. Blade of the Ruined King was over-nerfed, and finally tanks actually ended up much weaker than intended, so we're seeing buffs for them across the board. A lot of players have considered this patch a joke because tanks still feel weak. With their core items all receiving buffs next patch, we'll have to see if they'll live up to their hype. That's it for buffs, so let's run through system nerfs next. For system nerfs, Liandry's Anguish, Riftmaker, Umbral Glaive, Maw of Malmortius, Death Stance, and Kraken Slayer are all getting nerfed. Sustained AP damage is proving to be too strong as a result of the durability update, so they're having their numbers looked at again. Umbral Glaive is noted to be too good at what it's intended for, denying vision, which comes as no surprise as they rebuffed the item exactly to the form that it was a problem so many years ago. Finally, the two fighter items are proving to be too powerful as well, and the durability updates have made them even better. Kraken Slayer is also up for a nerf to make sure AD carries have a variety of build options to choose from rather than having sustained damage take the crown. Aside from items, turret damage is set to be lowered, and the Lethal Tempo Keystone is also going to receive some nerfs. Again, big meta changes are coming up, so I heavily suggest you contact one of our coaches at ProGuides.com. If you're serious about improving, make sure to meet with one of our experts and they'll help you identify your next steps to ranking up. That said, let's finish up systems with one adjustment. Short and simple, Grievous Wounds is gonna be changed. The values are being reduced from 30% and 50% to 25% and 40%. With proper item balance elsewhere, this is a supposedly power neutral change, so interpret that information however you'd like. That wraps up all the system changes coming up, so let's move on to champion balance next. First off, let's talk about the top lane. Tahm Kench, Irelia, Tryndamere, Lilia, Gwen, and Olaf are up for some adjustments. Tahm Kench is one of the few tanks who is surprisingly underperforming, in spite of all the durability changes. Given the power of his thick skin, the durability buffs should have had much stronger effects than intended for him. That said, he's currently seeing a decent amount of play in the bottom lane, where he actually holds a significantly higher win rate. Any buffs he receives are surely gonna be even more valuable since tank items are also receiving buffs in the next patch. Irelia and Tryndamere are two fighters who are struggling quite a bit following these changes. As they're both aggressive top laners who love to go for turret dives, it's no surprise they aren't able to snowball as effectively as before. While they themselves are tankier, it's a lot harder for them to start steamrolling lobbies like before, as they're struggling to pick up those early kills they need. Expect to see some buffs for them as well next patch. Surprisingly, Lilia top has resurfaced as of late. With increased durability, she's a much fiercer enemy given the immense amount of healing that's built into her kit. I'm sure this was an oversight by the balance team and she'll likely receive some healing nerfs against champions in the early game. In regards to high, sustained damage output, there's just no forgetting Gwen. She's also been picked a ton in competitive play, so it's even possible that she had this nerf coming her way without durability adjustments. On top of Riftmaker receiving a nerf, Gwen will also face a direct nerf as her win rate is just shy of 50% at the moment. Considering her design, she's supposed to perform a bit worse than others and is clearly too strong at the moment. However, with both a mythic item and direct nerf, that might not be true for long. Finally, Olaf top is also up for nerfs. Everybody saw this one coming. Following his mid-scope update, he started going berserk in the top lane. He continues to prove he's an absolute monster to fight against with his high damage, sustain, and the new shield. The fact that he can extend his ultimate's duration indefinitely ensures that he doesn't fall off as hard into the late game as well. That's it for the top lane, so let's swing into the jungle next. In the jungle, we have a decent list to go over as well. Xin Zhao, Nunu, Gragas, Lee Sin, Wukong, Master Yi, Kayn, and Rengar are set to receive some changes. First 4 champions are up for buffs. At the moment, Xin, Nunu, Gragas, and Lee Sin are all heavily underperforming. Quite the shame for players who made them, but the good news is that Riot is taking action. Nunu and Gragas players should heavily consider building tankier next patch if they aren't already doing so. It's very surprising that Xin and Lee Sin are underperforming, as their aggressive playstyles and ability to gap close typically make them great solo queue picks. Xin is currently at a 47% win rate in high elo and Lee Sin at an abysmal 45%. Starting nerfs, let's talk about Wukong. A rather durable fighter, Wukong does an excellent job at initiating fights for his team, as well as dishing out significant damage. The fact that he has built-in armor shred definitely helps with the abundance of armor in the game. Master Yi is also receiving nerfs. He deals immense damage, especially in long fights. The durability buffs also help him significantly, as it is much harder to invade him and shut him down. Early game combat is a bit easier for him as well, as his kit is built for fights that take several basic attacks to finish. Kayn is another jungler receiving nerfs. Presumably, the healing from his red form is too strong and Riot needs to look into it again. Finally, we have Rengar up for a nerf as well. He's performing exceptionally well in high elo as a result of his burst damage, map control, and simply because he snowballs so hard. Games can quickly get out of hand, and the first strike rune helps him become quickly the threat that demands so much respect from solo queue lobbies. And that wraps up the jungle changes, so let's head on over to the mid lane next. For the mid lane, we have changes coming up for Ryze, Sylas, Swain, Taliyah, Veigar, and Fizz. Ryze and Sylas are the 2 mid laners who are up for buffs. I think it's common knowledge that Ryze has one of the worst win rates in the game, so this buff comes as no surprise. Sylas is also performing poorly, but not nearly as badly as Ryze, as he's at a 48% win rate in high elo. Swain was recently given a mid-scope update as well. He does a much better job at filling the battle mage role, as he's able to indefinitely use his ult now. Given the increased lengths of fights, this change in particular has made him a much more effective mid laner than before. He's currently at a 53% win rate in high elo, so expect to see either damage or sustain nerfs. Taliyah also went through mid-scope updates not too long ago, and at the moment, she's sitting at a 53% win rate in high elo. She was already performing well before this patch, so it's more than likely she would have faced these nerfs regardless of any major meta shifts. Veigar, on the other hand, has directly benefited from added defensive stats and slower gameplay. Since he wants games to extend to give him a chance to farm up, he has no problem conceding harder lanes. But turrets are now so strong that enemy mid laners aren't able to get as much out of taking lane priority against him anymore, so expect him to get a slap on the wrist. Final change is for Fizz, who's going to receive a system adjustment intended to leave him at roughly the same power level. Before moving forward, let me also ask our question of the day. Do you want to see more tanks in the game? I know a lot of players prefer explosive high damage gameplay because it's fun, but I personally would like to see more tanks played. It's nice to have variety, and at the moment, it definitely feels like tanks have been pushed to the sidelines. Let me know your answers in the comments below. We're finished with the mid lane, so let's talk about the bot lane next. For bot lane, the following champions are receiving changes: Samira, Caitlyn, Aphelios, Kog'Maw, and Zeri. First off, Samira, Caitlyn, and Aphelios are up for buffs. Aphelios currently holds a 45% win rate in high elo, so he's definitely weak in several ways. On the other hand, Caitlyn and Samira are definitely performing worse as a result of added durability. Caitlyn relies heavily on poking down enemies, which is clearly harder when her opponents are tankier. Samira loves to get aggressive and pick up early kills, which is also harder when your enemies have more defensive stats handed to them for free. On the other hand, Kog'Maw has benefited the same way Veigar has from this patch. It certainly helps that he has percentage health damage built into his kit. Since he's a late game hyper carry, he is thriving now that kills are harder to pick up and because his damage output is even more valuable than before. Finally, we have some big adjustments coming up for Zeri. She's one of the few champions whose changes we have information about. The goal of these changes are to reduce her utility and extreme mobility in exchange for more damage, reduced cooldowns, and W critting through walls. Her Q's damage will be increased by quite a bit, but passive charged attacks will no longer slow. For her W, the cooldown will be reduced, AD ratio increased, slow reduced at later levels, and it will crit whenever it hits a wall against champions and monsters. Her E's base cooldown will also be reduced, but the reduction per hit will be lowered significantly. Finally, her ultimate's early cooldown will be lowered, movement speed per stack reduced, but will produce 8 stacks of overcharge instead of 4. That's it for the bot lane, so let's wrap things up with their partners in crime, supports. For supports, Taric, Rakan, Brand, and Senna are up for balance adjustments. Taric and Rakan are going to receive buffs next patch. They're both hovering around a 47% win rate. Unfortunately for them, dedicated enchanters are performing very well as of late. It's also apparent that Senna is absurdly strong right now, and in a sense, these two picks don't actually benefit much from the longer fights. Their ultimates create brief windows of immense power for their team, but since fights are longer, the value of their abilities and their ultimates isn't as impactful at the moment. For nerfs, the first one is for Brand. He's likely doing better than before since every champion has more HP than they did previously. His high elo win rate is only slightly above 50%, but overall he's actually at 53%. Low elo players especially are finding him to be quite effective. Finally, Senna, the most contested support pick in the game with a 53% win rate, 19% win rate, and a 24% ban rate. She scales, heals her allies, and also provides great value with her ability to deny vision with Umbral Glaive and a global ultimate. No coincidence here that item is getting nerfed like I mentioned earlier, but there is more time to scale, which is great for Senna in addition to the fact that her teamfight utility is great for dragging them on even longer. My guess is that they'll nerf her utility rather than their damage, but hey, why not both? That is the end of our support section and also concludes our upcoming changes for patch 12.11. Let us know your thoughts about the upcoming patch, we'd love to hear them. Also, if you want to join our Discord community, make sure to expand the description where you can find a link down below. Be the first to learn about any events or giveaways we hold in the future for prizes like free coaching. Thank you all for watching, good luck in your games, and may the LP God smile down upon you.